How did the leader of a small village,
We got our mayor right here coming from Dolton, Illinois,
attract the attention of the entire nation and get nicknamed the worst mayor in America?
Everything she has initiated has been to promote her.
Questionable expenses,
I can map out their entire trip on the township credit card.
expensive police details,
162 hours.
Oh, that's nothing.
and allegations of retaliation.
Did you take that as a threat?
I took that as bullying.
She's not shy about attracting attention
It makes her feel as if she's like a superstar.
until she starts facing questions.
Let me ask you a few questions.
Yeah, she says no.
I'm asking her. We're going to talk.
Now the feds are involved, and another controversial mayor is joining the story.
We want transparency.
With this much controversy coming from just one person, we gotta ask, who is Mayor Tiffany Henyard? And what's behind the drama in Dolton?
She cannot continue to intimidate and gangster her way through this.
Welcome. I'm Fox 32's Dane Placko. Tiffany Henyard actually has two political jobs on two public payrolls. As mayor of South Suburban Dolton, or as she calls herself, super mayor, and supervisor of Thornton Township, where she makes over $200,000 a year. Now, before Henyard's election in 2021, Dolton was like any other suburban community with festivals, parades, and its share of problems. But today, Dolton is known more for the mayor herself and the never-ending allegations that she's used and abused her two offices at Dolton and Thornton Township for pricey security details, trips to Vegas, unmissable highway billboards, and the curious donation of township tax dollars to a cancer charity named for, you guessed it, Mayor Henyard.
nobody knows something. Don't nobody know nothing.
Tiffany Henyard certainly isn't shy about attracting attention. Here she is starting a Dolton Village board meeting dressed like the Wesley Snipes character in the movie New Jack City, later punctuating her political points with the help of her own DJ.
Every single resident. Pay me what you owe me. Thank you, DJ.
Henyard's picture and name adorn virtually every public posting, both from Dolton, where as mayor she makes $46,000 a year, and in Thornton Township, where as the elected supervisor she collects more than $200,000 a year. But for all that money, Henyard's tenure at both has been chaotic, with firings, scandals, and a legal battle with the Dolton trustees over spending. So last fall, Henyard did something that would seemingly generate some good publicity, helping establish the Tiffany Henyard Cares Foundation to help breast cancer patients. And on the very day the charity was chartered, it received a huge donation, $10,000, from the Thornton Township Board, which Henyard presides over.
Taxpayer money shouldn't be paid into those types of things.
Stephanie Wiedemann is the former Thornton Township Chief of Staff, whom Henyard fired shortly after taking over in March of last year.
It almost felt like a takeover, and a very aggressive one at that.
Since her firing, Wiedemann has been documenting township spending and says she's stunned by the taxpayer dollars funneled into Henyard's charity, especially this.
We got 10 days. We're going 196 miles.
Last October, Henyard led a delegation of Dolton and Thornton Township employees and political supporters on a march to Springfield to promote her breast cancer charity, which she documented on her Facebook page.
We walking through Dolton. All right, we're in Brightwood now. We are in Godly now. We in Bloomington, baby.
I can pretty much map out their entire Springfield trip on the township credit cards.
That's right. Henyard billed thousands of dollars in hotel rooms and meals during the trip to Thornton Township and Dolton credit cards. In addition, the videos show Henyard used multiple village and township vehicles owned by taxpayers to escort the caravan, including a flatbed trailer with a photographer, flying a drone, and a DJ.
We got our mayor right here coming from Dolton, Illinois, walking all the way to Springfield. Y'all make some noise for our mayor, the people's mayor.
But they didn't always walk.
We on motorbikes, baby.
At times, riding electric bikes.
Y'all see my bike?
Our town ship
Superman.
supervisor.
It looks like a misspending of tax funds. I think that's the biggest concern.
Dolton trustee Jason House has been doing battle with the mayor since she took office.
Very disturbing to hear these things or to kind of see some of the receipts that appear to be connected to it. And I think the taxpayers really deserve better than that.
And then there's the merch.
This a shirt. One of the t-shirts.
Along the way, Henyard sold and gave away t-shirts and hoodies, also available on her charity's website. A week before the trip, the township paid $17,000 for specially printed hoodies and t-shirts, but won't say what they're for.
I think that everything she has initiated has been something to promote her, something to get her name in household, something to get people to buy into voting for her.
Our investigation found at least $11,000 in public funds spent on that trip. But both Dolton and Thornton Township have been slow or unresponsive to open records requests. So what was the purpose of the 10-day march to Springfield?
I have created a bill, which we're going to speak before the Revenue Committee, to give everybody $5,000 on their income tax when they file, if you are suffering from cancer.
A noble goal, except the Revenue Committee wasn't meeting when the group arrived in Springfield. Henyard did later testify at a committee hearing in Chicago, but so far nothing has come of her bill.
I think I'm doing a damn good job on leave.
So we went to a recent Thornton Township Board meeting to ask Henyard some questions about all that spending.
I've never ever been bitter to the news. Max, this is my olive branch to the media. Can you guys reach out to us and ask us our opinion before you post this? I would appreciate it.
And so we did.
I want to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
But Henyard wasn't anxious to talk about her charity.
Why did you and the board vote to give your foundation $10,000?
I'm the face of the foundation. My name is nowhere, sir.
Say again?
I'm the face.
You're the face. What was the purpose of going to Springfield?
Thank you, guys. Hey, she doesn't have any more comments,
No,
guys.
we're going to talk.
She doesn't have any more comments. Thanks, guys.
That's Keith Freeman, whom Henyard hired at both Dolton and Thornton Township and was part of her Springfield walk.
Look at Keith, baby!
Freeman also filed paperwork for the charity bearing Henyard's name.
Why are you using public money for your personal charity?
$17,000 for insurance. Why?
Thank you.
And with that, her security detail hustled Henyard upstairs and blocked the staircase with a table. So we tried asking another employee who went on that trip.
You went down to Springfield, and what were you hoping to do
You
in
need
Springfield?
to ask the people that handles that. I'm not the one that handled it. I was just riding the bike.
We need more officers on the streets. We need our streets repaved. So to spend that kind of money on a charitable event or supposed charitable event really doesn't seem like the best use of tax dollars.
Take a drive to the south suburbs and you can't miss them. 4 giant billboards featuring Tiffany Henyard's name in large letters, along with her picture, smiling down on the thousands of cars going by on Interstate 57 and the Bishop Ford Expressway. What are they advertising? One says fresh produce, another senior services, and this one simply says we offer general assistance. There's a phone number, but you wouldn't know what it's for unless you can read in teeny tiny letters, Thornton Township Supervisor, as you're speeding by. These are the billboards that have gone up along the expressways. We showed the billboards to Bert Odelson, an election attorney who's been working in Illinois politics for 50 years.
When I first looked at it, I thought, what is she running for now? Because that's what it shouts out.
Odelson, who represents a political faction opposed to Henyard and Dolton, says it's clear the billboards are promoting more than township services. He says they're essentially campaign ads.
This is a blatant attempt to promote herself politically. The township should not have paid for these if they did, and I'm sure they did.
They did indeed. Bills obtained by Fox 32 under open records laws shows Thornton Township paid more than $10,000 for the vinyl signs themselves, and more than $12,000 to Clear Channel Outdoor Advertising for 1 month's rental of the billboards.
What was your reaction when you saw him?
Well, first of all, I didn't know anything about him.
Thornton Township trustee Chris Gonzalez says the board was never consulted about the billboards, which he says needed their approval.
Kind of some of the first things that popped in my mind is, what are we doing? This isn't a big sale. We're not selling cars here. I mean, if it's informational, then it should be informational. I mean, there's so many other ways we could have spent that money that would have, directly helped people.
This isn't the first time Henyard has used taxpayer dollars to burnish her own personal image. In fact, on other occasions, she spent a lot more. And you can't turn your head in Dolton or Thornton Township without seeing Henyard's picture or name. It's on all the government-owned vehicles, buildings, even on the rugs in the township, where we found a Tiffany Henyard 2024 calendar featuring all the important dates to remember, including her birthday.
I would be having a fit if she was my client, telling her not to do this.
Veteran Chicago political consultant Delmarie Cobb says there would be nothing wrong if Henyard were using her own political funds for those promotional materials, especially the billboards.
I actually had a candidate years ago who was running for mayor of Dolton, and that's what we did. We bought billboards along the expressway, because if you're coming and going home all day, and one of the things I always say about billboards is they're working when you're asleep.
In 2011, state lawmakers passed a law banning the practice of politicians putting their names on publicly funded signs, spurred by these tollway signs featuring former Governor Rod Blagojevich. That law does not extend to mayors or other elected officials, but election attorney Odelson believes the billboards do violate state election laws.
It's a crime. Yeah, you're using public funds for something that taxpayer dollars shouldn't be used for.
And just when you think you've seen it all, take a look at this. When the first billboard went up last summer, Thornton was misspelled as Thornton. Another sign had to be ordered, apparently at taxpayer expense. In videos posted by Henyard herself, we see her being driven around and surrounded by Dolton officers, which got us to wondering, why all the cops?
We weren't opposed to her having the security detail. We asked how long and how often.
Dolton trustee Brittany Norwood says Henyard began assembling her detail shortly after being elected in 2021, using hand-picked Dolton police officers. Using a Freedom of Information request, we obtained the work records for 6 of the officers assigned to Henyard's security detail at various times, and showed them to some of Dolton's trustees.
This is a Freedom of Information request we did to see how much overtime these officers are making on her security detail.
Oh, wow. 162 hours.
162. Oh, that's nothing. What goes through your mind when you see these numbers?
It's disappointing. It's frustrating.
The officers are paid every 2 weeks, which without overtime is 80 hours. But when they're put on Henyard's detail, that 80 hours balloons to well over 100 hours, sometimes 200 hours. And in the case of Officer Terry Young last May, 303 hours worked over a 2-week period. That resulted in a single paycheck of more than $13,000.
How? How does a person put in a 2-week pay period, 303 hours? That's impossible. That's impossible.
There's 336
Does he
hours
never go to sleep?
In fact, there are 336 hours total in 2 weeks, meaning Young was not being paid for only 33 hours over that period. Other officers on the security detail are also racking up overtime paychecks in the multiple thousands of dollars.
Mayor, mind if I ask you a couple questions about your security detail?
Absolutely not.
I'm asking her.
Yeah, she said no.
A couple weeks ago, we tried to question Henyard about her detail as she went door to door in Dolton giving out water on a 100-degree day, surrounded by police, firefighters, public works employees, and 2 videographers documenting for Dolton's Facebook page.
I want to tell the people I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep going. I hope they post what we actually do here in the Village of Dolton and stop telling lies.
But when we gave her an opportunity to explain the OT,
Mayor, why do you need so many
Why don't you ask about water?
officers,
You gonna ask, what you
details,
ask
or your
about water?
security?
What did you say, water? It sounded like you said water.
earlier that day, we watched as a Dolton cop drove Henyard from her other job at Thornton Township to a Mexican restaurant for lunch. Trustees say the security detail picks the mayor up at her home in the morning and is with her until she's dropped off at night, often taking her on errands and shopping.
Does she need a security detail?
Absolutely not. Why? Why would you need a security detail?
Oh, she loves it. She just loves it. She loves the detail. I think it makes her feel as if she's like a superstar.
Dolton trustees have filed a lawsuit against Henyard, saying she's not justified the need for security and is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on it without the board's approval.
I see no justification whatsoever, and more than that, it's really a detriment to the residents of Dolton.
How so?
The residents, if we would take the same money and put it on officers patrolling the streets, then the residents will see a much better presence and public safety would be better.
We've had a few shootings, so we need the extra police patrolling our streets instead of patrolling her.
And we found Dolton credit card statements showing that Henyard takes the detail with her even when she travels out of town, spending thousands of dollars on plane tickets, lodging, and meals for the officers.
Mayor, why are you taking all the officers out of town with you? Isn't that a waste of taxpayers' money?
Let's go to this one right here, 30 times.
Anything you want to say to defend yourself on this?
As for the village's finances, trustees say Dolton is now getting sued by some vendors for failure to pay its bills.
In the last 2 fiscal years, we're $5 million in the hole, and a big part of it is the security detail.
It's embarrassing.
Embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. You don't see the governor with a detail as hers.
Several months after we broke the story about Henyard's expensive security detail, we got confirmation that it was impacting the ability to fight crime in Dolton. And that came in an exclusive Fox 32 interview with somebody who would know, Dolton's now former police chief.
The manpower was just very stressed and critical to the point of almost breaking.
Former Dolton Police Chief Robert Collins spoke to us from Florida, where he's taken a new job after being fired by Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard late last year. But Collins says he remains frustrated by what he experienced leading an undermanned, overworked police department, while Mayor Henyard demanded a large personal security detail.
You know, wrong is wrong, and there's a time to hold people responsible and accountable for their actions. But at some point, there would be 2 officers or 3 officers, and depending on if there was some type of event, it would be more officers.
That's for a town of a little more than 20,000 people that's struggling economically and usually only has a few officers on duty per shift. Collins says Henyard's security detail was warranted when it started in 2021 after a police-involved shooting sparked protests and threats.
And at some point, the protests stopped. However, the detail continued. Why do you need a security detail while you're out of town? Who's on the other end of that flight that's going to do harm?
Collins says he became increasingly frustrated because the mayor's detail tied his hands when it came to fighting crime. Just last week, a mass shooting on Sibley Boulevard left 4 people injured. Collins believes the bad guys know there aren't enough cops on Dolton's streets.
But Village of Dolton has its challenges with gangs, guns, and drugs. And if those officers aren't there, the visibility isn't there. And if the visibility isn't there, then criminals have free reign. And it more or less was, these are the orders. This is what you have to do.
Last week, Collins filed a civil lawsuit against the Village of Dolton for wrongful termination, saying he was fired by the mayor without cause and without board approval, because his wife is friends with some of the mayor's perceived political enemies.
And our contention is that it is illegal.
Did he do anything wrong?
No. Chief Collins, any position that he's ever been in is a policeman's policeman. He held the rank of chief, but he's a patrolman at heart.
But it is frustrating to see the officers used like that. I'm sure the officers are frustrated too, but they following orders.
As the attention on Henyard heated up, Dolton Village Hall and Thornton Township headquarters became the stage for an evolving soap opera. Village trustees started going rogue. Employees got locked out of their offices, and it became harder for the public and press to attend meetings, including one to vote on the mayor's salary that we learned included a poison pill provision that made any potential challenger think twice about running against Henyard.
Did you know about this beforehand?
No, absolutely not. No word was given to myself.
Thornton Township trustee Chris Gonzalez was just sitting down at the start of the township's board meeting 2 weeks ago when he was handed a 7-page proposed ordinance requiring an immediate vote.
You had no time to read it?
No, and then we get pretty much into the meeting pretty quick.
What it does is to ensure that Henyard continues to receive her $224,000 a year salary as township supervisor. But if a non-incumbent becomes supervisor, in other words, if someone challenges Henyard and beats her, the salary for that position drops to just $25,000 a year, a pay cut of nearly 90%. Trustee Gonzalez says it's a political poison pill to scare off competition.
Discourage people from running is probably the first thing that comes to mind.
Is this legal?
No, it's so illegal in so many ways.
Municipal Attorney Bert Odelson, who represents Henyard's political opposition in Dolton, says under equal protection of the law, the salaries of elected officials have to be identity blind, meaning they don't change based on the person holding the job.
It's maybe the worst attempt to try to dissuade people from running that I've ever seen, and that's a long time.
Henyard isn't facing re-election until 2025, but already potential competitors are circling despite the drastically lower salary, including State Senator Napoleon Harris. But if Henyard is re-elected, she'll continue making the $224K, even if she seems to believe the job is worth a fraction of that.
You think this is a job that should pay over $200,000 or $25,000?
I mean, probably somewhere in the middle, in all honesty.
So this is the assessor's office.
Cassandra Elston has been the assessor here in Thornton Township for the past 10 years, an elected position that helps residents deal with exemptions and property tax appeals. But when she arrived at work this morning, something strange happened.
This was your office?
Yes.
What happened when you tried to open it?
It doesn't work.
Not only had Elston been locked out of her own office, but boxes of sensitive documents that she kept in her office were spread around the common area.
This was under lock and key before.
This was under lock and key.
And now it's just out in the open?
Now it's just out in the open. So it has the taxpayer's name, address.
So who did this to you?
Well, I mentioned this new supervisor, Tiffany Henyard.
Elston has been critical of Henyard's spending at the township and believes getting kicked out is political payback.
But this is not going to stop me. This is my job. This is what I get paid to do.
She's the assessor. She invited us inside here.
And that's when township security officers stepped in.
Okay. So you're refusing to leave? Yes.
South Holland police were called to the scene, and they agreed with us that the assessor had every right to invite us into her office.
The news crew is here to do an interview on me.
Does Tiffany Henyard have any right to do this?
Not only Tiffany Henyard, but nobody has any right to do this to a separate elected official like the assessor.
The assessor's lawyer, Bert Odelson, tells me they plan to file a lawsuit in Cook County demanding she get her office back.
It is extremely illegal.
You can do and say pretty much what you want to say or do to me. But when you start doing things that affects the taxpayers, that's why I draw the line.
After we finished the interview, somebody deactivated the key fobs for all of the assessor's employees, meaning now none of them can get into the office. So tomorrow they plan to set up tables and chairs here outside Township Hall to meet the public. The sign outside its headquarters says, "Welcome to Thornton Township, people working with people." But when residents showed up last night to speak at a public board meeting, they got anything but a warm welcome.
When I arrived, there was security here. He was standing at the bottom of the stairs, preventing anybody from going up to the boardroom. I asked him if the meeting was downstairs. He replied yes.
Stephanie Wiedemann and a handful of other residents wanted to speak directly to Thornton Township Supervisor Tiffany Henyard, also the mayor of Dolton.
I'm just curious to see who makes the decisions about how our tax dollars are being spent.
But they never got that chance. After being blocked from going to the boardroom upstairs, they were sent to the basement where they were told the township board meeting would be held. It wasn't. They asked for a sign-up sheet for public comment, never got it. And before they knew what had happened, the 4-minute meeting upstairs was over, and Henyard was gone, without hearing from her constituents.
They are violating our rights. I pay taxes here. I have a right to get up and speak whether this administration likes it or not.
And not only were the residents shut out, so was a local newspaper reporter who came here to cover the meeting.
I was told by a security guard that I was not allowed upstairs where the boardroom meeting is.
Josh Bootsma of the Lansing Journal says residents deserve to know how elected officials are spending their money.
Thornton Township is the largest township in Illinois. And so there are a lot of people that are affected by the decisions, the financial decisions that this township makes.
Even Thornton Township trustee Chris Gonzalez, a frequent Henyard critic, was ordered out of the boardroom until the meeting began.
Do you think any laws were broken last night by the way they handled the public?
Well, definitely. I mean, if somebody wants to speak, it's a public meeting, it's a public building. They should be able to come in.
With Mayor Henyard now a regular target of criticism, Dolton employees and local business owners started feeling the heat, claiming they faced retaliation when they refused to support the mayor. Even a park permit was revoked for an event that was happening the same day as a music festival managed by, correct again, Mayor Henyard.
Always a good time for everybody that comes out, fun, exciting, good for the community.
For the past 8 years, Darren Bosley has organized an annual car show here in the parking lot of Needles Park in Dolton. But after paying $1,000 to the Park District for this year's permit, Bosley got an unexpected call last Wednesday from Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard's top assistant,
saying that the show would be shut down, but if I move my event to her location on Greenwood, that I would be fine.
Did you take that as a threat?
Yes, I took that as bullying.
Sure enough, when Bosley showed up at the park Saturday morning, he found that giant concrete barricades had been placed at the entrance, and Dolton police were threatening to tow any cars that parked there.
We're talking about two different governments. We're talking about the park government versus the village government.
Dolton Park District President Cleo Jones says Mayor Henyard has no legal authority over Park District property and believes she didn't want the competition to hurt attendance at her own event, a house music festival a few blocks away.
So I'm not sure what her tactics were other than trying to bully us and push us away, but that's not going to happen here.
What would you say to the mayor about this?
Get your life together, get your act together. This is wrong for people that spend money with the Park District to try to throw an event, peaceful event, fine event, and it's good for the community, but you're taking that away from everybody.
They just rushed in here, put police at the front of the door like they was doing a raid on the drug house or something.
A team of Dolton police officers raided and shut down Pablo's Bar and Cafe and Rinky's Bar and Cafe, both located on Sibley, about a block apart.
Everything going peacefully, nothing going on. It's like 10 police cars came in and they start pushing customers from here, and he said, if you don't leave, we're gonna lock you up.
Employees and owners say it's part of an ongoing campaign of harassment by Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard that is costing jobs and money. Their business licenses have been stripped by Dolton, but they've continued to operate with a state license.
I have like over 23 employees. They work from the local township. Now, end of the day, all the employees, they're gonna lose their job.
It's ridiculous. We all have mouths to feed. We all have kids. They're not giving us no explanation.
On Monday, we visited both Rinky's and Pablo's to ask about allegations their licenses were being held up for political reasons. Then last evening, we broke the story that FBI agents have questioned at least a half dozen people, including business owners, a former Dolton employee, and an elected official, as part of an investigation into Mayor Henyard. Less than 2 hours after our story aired, police raided the two bars.
Someone seen you go in there, and then 2 hours after your story airs, that police are at both of these establishments.
Dolton trustee Tammy Brown says she believes the raids are meant to send a warning to others not to talk. And she believes there's a reason so many Dolton businesses are having trouble getting their licenses renewed.
I'm sure that they were asked to donate, make a donation, and most likely they didn't make a donation.
Dolton residents had enough, and in April, Dolton's trustees voted to open an investigation into Mayor Henyard and invited everyone from the state's attorney to the FBI to come to Dolton and open the books. Well, trustees got their wish when we broke the news that FBI agents were in fact interviewing witnesses as part of a federal investigation. And then entering the fray, another mayor who frequently found herself in the crosshairs, former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
I commit to you that I will follow the facts where they lead without bias. At the conclusion of this investigation, I will provide an assessment of the findings and the recommendations, and I welcome and urge the full cooperation by Mayor Henyard, her staff, all village trustees, vendors, and others.
This board specifically has made reaches to the state's attorney, attorney general, governor's office, and as we know, there are ongoing, it's been reported that there's ongoing investigations from federal entities. Those entities, as we know, can take anywhere from 2 months to 5 years. We feel this option will give us an independent process.
Overall, it tells me that the investigation is expanding. It's not just focusing on the city of Dolton.
Former FBI agent Ross Rice says the subpoenas revealed the burgeoning scope of the federal criminal investigation into Thornton Township Supervisor and Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard. One subpoena focuses entirely on Henyard, including 2 businesses she owns, a restaurant and a property management company, as well as Henyard's political fund and the charity bearing her name. It asks for all records, including personnel files, wage and tax statements, time and attendance, records of work performed, contracts, and checks written to cash.
The mayor and the township supervisor, who are one and the same, appear to be the primary focus of the investigation.
The second subpoena requests a kitchen sink of township records, including financial reports, budgets, payroll records, and ordinances covering credit card purchases, expense reimbursements, security details, and the use of vehicles. The subpoena also asks for payments and credit card expenditures for a number of township employees, including Henyard's top lieutenant, Keith Freeman.
It's very broad in the scope. It's very broad in the number of people and entities they're asking for records on.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Stephanie Wiedemann is a former township employee turned whistleblower who's been helping the FBI in its investigation.
What do we want? Our township back!
Over the weekend, she took part in a rally of Thornton Township residents calling on Henyard to resign. Wiedemann says the latest subpoenas are a welcome sign.
I hope that the township finds a way to be able to recoup the damage that has been done. But I hope that the people that did the damage, there's repercussions for making bad decisions.
Now, it'll take some time for investigators to untangle the mess in Dolton. And at the time we're recording this, we're still a year away from Dolton's next mayoral election. But if the next year is anything like the last three, then the story of Mayor Henyard and the Village of Dolton will continue to surprise and infuriate. And we'll keep covering it right here at Fox 32 Chicago. I'm Dane Placko. Thanks for watching.